In this lesson, we're going to talk about one type of while loop, the count-controlled loop. And we actually saw an example of that in the previous lessons with the balance calculating program. But let's look at a couple other examples. A very simple example would be a program that sums a range of numbers. Let's say the first 10 integers. So the way we do that is the first thing we do is we create the loop control variable, which is number, and we'll set it equal to 1. Then we'll create another variable sum and initialize it to 0 to store the sum as we work through the numbers. The next step would be to write the while loop itself. So we're going to say while number is less than or equal to 10 because we want to sum the first 10 integers, 1 through 10. So while number is less than or equal to 10, then in the loop we add the current value of number to the sum, and then we increment number by 1. Let's write out the sum right here. And the sum is 55. So we're saying this is a count control loop because we're controlling the number of times the loop is executed. The variable that does that is number, and it is again our loop control variable, so we'll add a comment here. So the limiting factor is number less than or equal to 10. And the other key element besides adding to the sum would be the increment statement right here. Without that, again, the loop will be an infinite loop and never stop. But by incrementing number by 1, number eventually becomes 11, and 11 is not less than or equal to 10, so the loop stops. Another example of a count-controlled loop would be one where instead of saying what will our balance be after a certain number of years, we can also say how many years would it take for a savings account to be at a certain balance based on an interest rate. So let's look at that problem. I'll comment out these lines to leave them here. So we want to know how long it's going to take a savings account balance to reach a certain amount. So to do that, again, we'll need a balance and a rate variable. We'll also need a years variable, which we're going to set to 0. We'll assign our balance. We'll assign our interest rate. We'll do 2% again. Let me scroll up a little bit here. And then we're going to say while balance is less than 5,000, and that will be our control. We want to see how long it's going to take our balance to get to 5,000. Then we're going to increment balance by multiplying it by the interest rate, and then increment years by 1. Then outside the loop, we'll write it will take years to reach, like so. So now this time the loop control variable is being modified in the statement that does most of our work, and that is the controlling factor. It's actually the number of years that we're interested in more so than the balance, which kind of flips our program from the last lesson around, because before we were interested more in the balance, but this time we're more interested in the years. So let's run that program and see what we get. We left out the word years out of our sentence here, our output, but you get the main idea. It will take 82 years to reach 5,000, and we can fix that by putting years in right here. Got to stop the program. So we'll run it again, and there it says it will take 82 years to reach $5,000 at 2%. And notice we're not adding any into the balance either. We're just taking the balance and then just adding the interest every year. We're not actually adding any principal to that. So those are two examples of what are called count-controlled loops. As I said earlier in the previous lesson, that's one example of a loop type. Another example is something called a sentinel or event-controlled loop, and we're going to look at that in the next lesson.